And I think that is probably the very first thing that the viewers saw was I will let you introduce us. In any case, it is our finally rebooting of our Hangouts, quarterly Hangouts. We have not been able to do this for quite some time, but alas, here we are. Shannon, how are you tonight?
I'm all right. Yes, my hair is covered up, but that's because it's thinning faster than I would like because of all the shitty stuff going on with me these days. And I was just like, I'm not going to try to cover up bald spots, keep the light from shining on it. So here we go. I'll just put the scarf on. I'm going to shave it all off this week. Then I don't care. But so
Very nice.
Anyway, any live shows for the next little while, that's probably all you're going to see. Here's a scarf. I've got lots of them. So fun times.
Awesome. All right. So I'm getting our link posted up for our patrons. That's patreon.com/glassboxpod. And if you would like to join us right now, you're more than welcome to. And, you can, this is a Q&A as we normally do these things. However, we also would like to invite other people on to join the panel and make it a broad discussion with more than just Shannon and I, of course. So I will be keeping an eye on that as well as all of the other live streaming stuff as we go through. So that means, Shannon, it's your job to walk us through some Q's to A here. And hopefully, some of the questions are just for Shannon and I. Some of the other questions are very broad and I think would be really fun to get other people's thoughts and feelings on. So maybe we can take some of the questions for us first, and then we can maybe when more people kind of jump in and hopefully join in on the panel, they can answer some of the other questions too. How's that sound?
There we go. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All right.
Well,
just checking here.
There's a few. A question I get asked a lot, and I have a hard time figuring out the answer to. Will wants to know, Shannon, how do you read so fast and retain information?
I wonder that too. How is it possible?
I'm like, good question. I that's something that I wonder how much of it is practice, how much of it is genetics. I don't know on that one because I've read all my life. As soon as I learned how to read, which was before I even started into school, I was reading and I just devour them because it was almost like I thought I wouldn't have them long enough. And so if I wanted to understand the book, I had to read the whole fucking thing really fast. And so I don't know. But it might be practice. It might be all of the above. So I know not everybody even likes to read. I mean, not everybody in my family likes to read. And I remember with my youngest sisters, when I realized all they were reading were Babysitter's Club. And I'm like, okay, I can read through this whole book in 20 minutes. Let me spread you off to other things, And so, but, it did get them reading other types of things, but they also, I don't think any of them really read as much as I do. Because that's just the thing I love to do the most is read. So yeah, that's a tough one.
I think you comfortably qualify as an exceptional reader. Where are you over your goal now for this year's worth of books? I mean, I want to hear the number because have you surpassed it by 100 books by this point now?
Probably more than that. Let's see, where am I? I know it's kind of embarrassing. So I'm like, okay, all right. It's just, oh God, yes. Let me pull it up. Yeah, that one, this reading goal that I only did because other people were like, Shannon, you should do this. At this point, I'm 315 books ahead of schedule. So I am at 448 books for this year with my goal of 300.
Okay. All right. So almost 150 over for a year goal. And we are not even halfway through the year.
I was like, right. I wonder if I can get it to where it's like 600 over schedule and hold it at that every day, but anyway, I don't know. It's kind of silly, but, yeah, I think part of it, I'm actually glad. I used to wish I had a photographic memory. But at this point, I'm actually glad that I don't, because I can go back and read a book again and find something new in the book.
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, that also
Absolutely.
meant I wasted a way the fuck too much time on the Book of Mormon trying to do that. But on the other hand, there's other books that I have read easily more than I did the Book of Mormon.
Right. Okay.
And those are ones I can go and enjoy it again and again and again. Like, there's the Quest of the Riddle Master series by Patricia McKillip. That was my first introduction to fantasy, and that the number of times I've read those is probably 70 plus easily.
Uh,
And I love that series.
wow, that's amazing.
Trilogy.
Somebody just commented on YouTube, thinking about books reminds me that I have an unread Stormlight archive book sitting on my shelf. What is that?
Go read it then.
Good answer.
So go read it. Yes. Yeah. In fact, Julie asked on here, what book do I think needs to be turned into a movie? Which I'm like, book? You mean singular?
Okay.
Okay. And I mean, there's several I would actually love to see. And one is, I would love to see the Riddle Master series by Patricia McKillip. You can do it now with the CGI, with all the magic and everything else in it, and you could do it well and make it look good, not like Dune in 1984. But it would also depend if you have an actor or a director who understands the books, understands the underlying point of the books, and has enough love of it to produce it, to do it right. And then if you have a production company willing to let them portray the books and not fuck them up like the production company did with Dune in 1984. So, those are things that'd be fun to see. But also some others like the Amber series by Roger Zelazny. And there's been talk for a decade off and on about making films of them or whatever. And I know that Stephen Colbert wants to be involved in it as a producer, and it might actually happen.
Ooh.
Do it as a TV show, I think, with HBO. And I hope that they do. It's actually 2 series of 5, and they're fantastic. And so that's one I really hope does get done. But there's also some, like Robin McKinley has some that I think would be really fun to do. Like my favorite vampire novel written, which is hers, and that's Sunshine. I think that would be really interesting on film. And so, there's some of those, but it's like what is said in the YouTube chat. Not all books would translate well to film. And that's why I'm like, with the McKillip one, you got to do it right, because it's a riddle master. So they're answering questions. And that's what the university is it produces riddle masters.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But the answers, these are life and death situations. And so,
Okay.
and it's like this one character, what happened before the first book is he'd gone just privately to this one tower to play a riddle game with the ghost there, just because. And the problem with this riddle game is so many other riddle masters had tried before, and all of them died because they couldn't give him a riddle that he couldn't answer.
Oh, interesting.
And so they're trading stuff, and this one person in it, Morgan of Head, HED, just this ruler of this little teeny tiny island, managed to ask a question that this ghost didn't know the answer to, and so he came out of it still alive and didn't tell anybody about it. So anyway, things like this, but you have to be able to film it right. And so that's the other problem. But like Sunshine by Robin McKinley, which is a fascinating vampire book. It's a much, by far, like 27 million times better written vampire love story than what was done in the Twilight series. And filmed, it would be incredibly bloody, and it would be an R-rated film, but it would be fascinating because what she created between humans and vampires, and the not just the personalities, but just this really alien nature of the vampires was truly interesting. And I would love to see that. I would love to see her hero in the crown and the blue sword in film. stuff like that. So anyway, those are ones I would absolutely love to see. But yeah, I mean, there's some things that are fun to see in film. I'm not overly fond of biographies on film. Unless it's somebody who, lived 500 years ago or something, just because they're usually, you can't put the entire thing on film. And so, it's like watching What's Love Got to Do with It, that was put out in, what was it, 98 or something like that, about Tina Turner. And it was based on the book she wrote, the biography of her, but they did not even at all present what she went through. And it was good, but it didn't really come close to going to hitting what her life was like. But
well, I mean, that's the struggle with any kind of a biography movie, though. Like, if you're trying to do like a biopic, it has to be like just fictionalized enough to be fully entertaining. But if you're doing like an actual biography, like a documentary style, then it's hard for it to hit the same like entertainment value that something like a biopic does, where it's like well-known actors who are portraying these individuals. Right. So like, I don't know, it seems like a really hard line to balance if you're trying to make like a good biography. And I don't know if I'm trying to remember if I've seen any that like really stuck out to me, like, wow, that was really, really well done. Right. And
it's a difficult thing. I mean, the Bohemian Rhapsody about Freddie Mercury, for me, I really enjoyed it because it gave me more respect for the song, which I think is the weirdest song on the planet, and still do. But still, I have a little bit more respect for the song itself, and because when they went through the process of putting it together. But there's other things like that because a book, you cannot take the book and just plop it into a film and have it work. It just doesn't.
Right.
You can't do it. Lord of the Rings, they did a fantastic job for the most part, but they still changed things, and they had to, because you have to have, you have the big story arc, but you also have a bunch of little ones going on, and you have to give a good big one to cover everything. It's like with The Hobbit is a hard one to put onto film anyway, because all it is just a series of events, all these little adventures and everything, and then here we are. And what I like that Peter Jackson did, not just making it into 3 films, but he did have an overarching story with that white orc going on, and this whole struggle between him and the dwarves and all that shit. And so that kind of thing. But same thing with the Voyage of the Dawn Treader of C.S. Lewis's Aslan series, or Narnia, sorry, not his Christ is Aslan series, you know what I'm talking about. But that one, it's the same thing. It's just a series of different events that didn't really tie together into anything else. It's just a voyage. That doesn't work well in a film. And so you have to change it. You have to do something different. And so like with Dune, with the new one with Timothée Chalamet, the box scene, I was like, how the fuck are they going to do that and make it work on film? Because in the book, there's a hell of a lot of talking. And in the film, it would have just gone, ugh, if they'd done that. And they did it in the 1984 one. And how they handled this one, there was so much not talking. And they don't show his hand. They don't show him thinking his hand is shriveling. They don't show that. You see his face. They made it into a chess game of them, just the way they looked at each other, and the intensity of the scene was phenomenal in the film. And they showed what they had to write about in the book. And I was like, that to me made the entire film worthwhile, was that scene.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the difference in how it was portrayed. So all of that saying, there's a lot of books that I absolutely adore and would hate to see them try to film it, because I think they would fuck it up. And the Riddle Master series, I'm afraid somebody would fuck it up, and you would have to have the people who have the most control over it be the ones who really understood the underlying thing of it and understood how to make it interesting visually. So.
Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the struggles with like any kind of a thriller type of book is like so much of it can be the tension that is building up over many, many pages that is very hard to like build that up over the span of an hour and a half movie. So like, yeah, I mean, I admire when a filmmaker is able to do it, but like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
exactly.
It's got to be done right. It's got to be done the
You
right
have to
way.
do it the right way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like with Lord of the Rings, one thing that just was pointed out in the chat is it didn't have the poetry so many people liked. And I agree. You missed, there was so many of the songs and the poetry that were missing. And what I did love is how often they were able to get some in, like Viggo Mortensen insisted on singing the song when he got crowned, because that's in the book. There's so many of those, and those kind of things. But it's like, there was a lot of that you missed, but I think there's a lot of viewers that would have been like, oh my God, this is a musical, shut up. And I think that might be why they didn't do that.
Right.
Because
Which
you
I mean,
have
it
to
speaks
appeal to
to
people.
right.
You have,
And that it speaks to the other point that same commenter made is that there were a lot of action scenes that they didn't care for.
yeah.
Which I mean,
There's
but
people that went
action
to see it for
scenes
that.
and sword fights and
Yeah.
shooting arrows and stuff that appeals to a lot of people. So you got to have a healthy balance if it's actually going to sell.
And you have to appeal to those who've never read the books.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the other problem. And so it's like with, for example, when you're speaking biopics, they did a film of a small part of the book, The Agony and the Ecstasy, which is about Michelangelo. And that is actually the first biography I ever read. I'd found the book in the bookcase at home when I was in 5th grade. I'm like, oh, that's a cool title. So I read it. And then I'm like, Michelangelo is cool, and I always wanted to go to Italy after that. But they filmed a small part of it. And Charlton Heston starred as Michelangelo, and it was about him painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And just that part. And so the Pope he was dealing with was played by, oh God, what was his name? Oh fuck. The actor who was in My Fair Lady, he was the guy teaching her.
Anybody?
Rex Harrison. That's
there
it.
it is.
Rex Harrison.
Yeah. Harrison.
Okay. He played the Pope, and they did a really good job with it, but they had to bring in a love interest so that people would go watch. And there wasn't a female love interest at the time. Michelangelo's love affair was with the art, and whatever love affairs he had them with men and women. It just, he was more fascinated with the male body than the female body. But for this film done in 1960 something, they had to bring in a female love interest. So they did, because there's audiences you have to appeal to. So, yeah. Anyway.
JC comments, why hasn't there been a true and good and wild film made about Joseph Smith? Thoroughly agree.
Absolutely agree.
Apparently there are quite a few holdups for a lot of people.
Yeah, the true film is why it's not been done, because Mormon Church is going to fight that.
Yeah, of course.
They're going to fight, and they've got the money to fight it.
100%. I mean, that's actually a good question to turn over to the panel as well. A book that should have been made into a movie. Does anyone have suggestions or thoughts or opinions?
Other than what was already expressed.
All right. Any of those opposed?
Is there a Lord of the Rings Broadway musical yet? Oh my God, shut up, Will.
Hold on, there is though. I Googled it, and on Wikipedia it says there's a musical just debuted this year.
Oh my
really?
God.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that surprise me? Oh God. Well, one other question Julie asked me is, what actors do I have to see every movie they're in? There's a few. I mean, there's some, and it's really because this actor or actress, or just actor, if you want to call them all that now, or moving to that, I hope, is so good at acting that you are watching the role and not the actor. And that's one issue I have with calling, the early years of film the golden age, because I'm like, golden age implies that's the best age, and that wasn't. They were not the best films ever produced. They were not the best actors ever done, because no one was really allowed to act. They were put into a role because the role fit their personality, not because they were given something to stretch their boundaries. Now they do more of stretching your boundaries. And so that's why I'm like, nah, I hate calling it that. Studio systems were bad. Everything was, all of it, Anyway, so for me, it's ones like Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett, I've decided, can play anybody. She can play absolutely anybody in film. So she is one I will watch play anything just to see how she does it. Even if I decide to never watch the movie again, because it was such a disturbing experience, I will still watch it because she did it. Richard Broxburgh is another character actor I love, or Alfred Molina is one. Daniel Day-Lewis, he doesn't have that many he's done, but he's fantastic in what he's done. I mean, The Crucible, to me, just ripped every vein out of my body. I mean, not just my heart. It ripped out everything because of the way he played it. And no, I never want to see it again. He was fantastic. And I mean, every time I think of The Crucible, the play even, I hear him in my head screaming out, but it is my name, and I can't stand it. And then I'm like ugly crying, it's like that. They're ones I will watch in anything. It doesn't matter what it is. I will watch it just because it's them. But yeah. And also another one, which I was like, how the fuck do I answer this? What's your favorite dragon collectible? Really, Julie? You're asking me to name that? That's like asking me to name what's my favorite movie? What's my favorite book? Especially coming from somebody, and I'm having to answer it from a person who gave me one reading a book in front of the other one who gave me a set of 3 reading a book. Yeah, okay.
Well, I get you to talk, so.
I'm going to give you a hard time about that forever. I mean, those are some of my favorites, but I also have things like, I have the pictures that nephews drew for me, including the newest one, which is a dragon cello. And so awesome. And then I also have ones like a dragon being hatched out of an egg, one that my sister Heidi gave me back when I was a teenager, but also one that my daughter Maya made me in a pottery class. I've had stuff like that. I have several dragons that are knives in various ways, where it's like, the sheath is in the body, and it's the tail that you pull it out of the body, and stuff like this. Just, there's a bunch. They're cool.
So if
I really don't have a favorite.
If a dragon collectible is also functional, then it jumps higher up on the list, but it's impossible. There is no top of the list, right?
There isn't one. There's no favorite.
Well, if it was given to you by Maya or one of your nephews or whatever.
I know, it's like there's so many of them that have stories to them too. It's like, and it's also ones that, it's like those two, the one that you gave me and the one that Bryce gave me of a dragon reading a book. It's like, this is the one for Bryce that I keep right here. And then the one from you is actually now in the living room. But it's like, that one is so cool because it speaks to your knowledge of me, because you know how much I love books.
Yeah.
And so, as and it was picked because you knew this is something I would love because I love books. And so, it wasn't just a random, oh, look, there's a dragon, let's get that for Shannon. So, those kind of things are just, those are the best.
Yeah. They're special.
They're
Absolutely.
special. Yeah. And so it's like, I have occasionally gotten rid of some because there's so many. But it's like, and then Maya went through the roof going, Mom, don't you just don't get rid of the special ones. I was like, everyone that has a story behind it's not going. These are the ones that I bought just because.
They're all dragons. They're all special. Okay.
So she's so fun. It's just cute because she's like, those I'm gonna keep forever, Mom. They're part of my growing up years. Yes, I know. It's great. Yeah.
Speaking
So,
of growing up years, you were visiting a grandson yesterday.
yes.
That's so exciting.
I wish
so-
I could show you all pictures, but they've asked not to put them on social media, so I'm not.
Okay.
Because
That's totally fair.
they're the boss.
Yep.
And I agree. And so, but he's cute. And Hank absolutely loves him. They're becoming best friends. There are people that are like, I can't believe you let the dog be around the baby. And I'm like, you better not keep him from the baby.
Oh,
you know, because their dog, Hank, he's half Australian Kelpie, half border collie. So he's just this friendly guy, who loves everybody, even the dogs that don't like him. And he thinks they want to be friends anyway, and they're just trying to play with him. And then all that kind of thing. It's so he enjoys watching Jack, the baby, and stuff. He still gets kind of jealous of him when Maya spends a lot of time with him, feeding him and everything, but he's used to it. He doesn't get all a pain in the ass. He more like sulks about it. But what'll be really cool is when he's crawling. But yeah, so right now when he starts to cry, Maya says Hank will come along and he'll put his face down on the baby's leg, like, okay, I'm here, you can calm down now. It's really cute.
That's adorable. They're gonna be best friends. Well, they are becoming best friends. Just Jack doesn't know it quite yet.
Right.
He'll figure it out soon, though.
I know. So I just sent them. This came today. I have another one that's coming to him in another day or two. But I found a set with a one of those handkerchief thingies you tie on the dog's neck, and a onesie to match, where it's got a dog print and a heart, and it's like best friends. You know, they both say the same.
That's so adorable. Holy crap.
And then the other one is like, hey, you're my best friend, aren't you? And on the onesie, and the dog's thing says, yeah, we are, you know, or something like that. Yep, think so, you know, kind of thing. And I'm just like, there we go. She needs those, and they can wear them when these people who don't understand dogs come over.
Excellent. All right, next question.
Well, next question. All right. Let's see. Bryce.
Yes.
Your favorite dream car. That's from Julie too.
So I had the pleasure when I visited Utah just a few weeks ago of seeing your new car, which is so nice.
My new used car.
Your new used car. Yes, but it's a Lexus, right? Lexus is I've owned one Lexus. It's the best car I've ever owned. I absolutely love that. And my ultimate dream car is a ultimate Lexus car. It's called the LFA. And what's special about this car specifically is that Yamaha, the piano instrument company, teamed up with Lexus in order to tune the sound of the engine that the engine makes, and it's just like a legendary it's an unbelievable howl. Jeremy Clarkson on Top Gear, when he reviewed it, I can't remember exactly the words that he used, but I think he called it like a wounded banshee or something like that. And it is absolutely legendary. So anyone who knows cars is probably nodding along like, yeah, everyone wants an LFA. Yes, okay, best sounding car ever. Yes, okay, well, that's my choice because I love Lexuses, and I love Japanese cars in general. That's where my heart is. I have only ever owned Japanese cars, and they're so amazing, and that's my ultimate pick.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, my car it was a gift actually. Alex's mom, doctor took away her license, and so she's like, do you want my car? We're like, yeah, we'll take it. Okay, absolutely,
take the Lexus.
So
yes,
she just gave it to us. That was kind of nice.
Wonderful.
I'm not gonna argue. It's always fun. So what car, there's another question Julie has for you. What car would you like to take in an open area and see how fast you can take it? Like, Bonneville Salt Flats or something.
Yes. All right. So I actually have a specific distinct memory for this. I would go back to when I was maybe 6 years old, and I was on the Bonneville Salt Flats, and I would punch Craig Breedlove in the face and steal his keys and take the Spirit of America past the sound barrier. That's and you know, like holding Roman candles shooting out the window or something too, like to properly do this right. How cool would it be to break the sound barrier in general, but on the ground? Oh, that would be so cool. So yeah, I think that's my choice.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun memory though. Like I remember it was painfully bright. It hurt so bad to walk around the salt flats because it's just sun and the white reflecting straight up into your eyeballs. But we got to go like meet Craig and like got to see the Spirit of America with the shell off of it, the jet engine exposed, and it's like, whoa, my little brain was blowing up at that. It was the coolest thing ever.
I have to say, I love it when they have the Bonneville Salt Flats in films. Always, every time I see it, I'm like,
yeah,
you know.
The Fastest Indian. It's such a great scene when he like spins and he's sliding sideways. It's like the salt pane out. It hurts so bad.
when they filmed, which one was it? The second Pirates movie where they're down at Davy Jones's locker, you know, and they're filming him there.
Is that the salt flats?
That's the salt flats. They said in the making of, they had to tell all the guys, they were like, doesn't matter how hot it is, you still have to wear underwear under your shorts because otherwise the sun will reflect up and it will burn your balls.
Hazard pay right there.
I know. Yeah, they have it in that. They have it in Independence Day. There's a bunch of them.
Independence Day.
Yeah, when they're driving to Area 51.
Is that also the salt flats? That
was the salt flats they were driving on. Yeah.
Very interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that scene where the UFO was crashed and they're walking back with their parachutes and the cigars. I wonder if that was the same as well. I need to watch that movie again. Wow, it's been forever since I've seen that. Yeah,
I could movie drop everything on anything.
For sure.
Okay, she wants to know also, what is your favorite metal band?
Ooh, that's like movies, it's hard to pick a single favorite, but I will pick, I think, what is my first like favorite metal band, and that's Chelsea Grin. And that's primarily because they're a Mormon metal band that were like super duper like fuck the church, fuck religion in their early albums. And then the album My Damnation is oddly enough, it's one of those rare times in a metal album where it's an entire album it's not just a collection of songs, but it's a narrative that begins on song one and ends with the last song. And it's in my opinion, it's one of the very few masterpiece albums, and I think it's just a crowning achievement and puts Chelsea Grin above and beyond basically any other death metal band. It's truly it's so good. It's so good.
Have you sent me any of their stuff?
I don't think I ever have, actually.
All right, you do it after this.
Yeah, after this, definitely. There's one song. I mean, it's the album title. It's the song is also called My Damnation, but it has an instrumental interlude or introduction to it that's like 1 minute and 20 seconds or whatever, and it's just like. It starts out as like this almost like a festive acoustic guitar, and then it like drops into a minor key, and you realize that like, oh, everything is taking on like a really dark tone here. And then it finally gets into the song that is My Damnation, that represents like the beginning of the fall that like carries out through the rest of the album, like sets the rest of the album up. It's just so beautiful, so perfectly done. I could talk about Chelsea Grin forever. I mean, my tattoo is patterned after, or I took the idea of my tattoo from one of their album covers because it was such a special thing to me.
That is cool.
I've seen them live a dozen times, maybe more. In fact, that's the only metal concert that I actually dragged Annie to. I was like, no, we're going down to the pit. We're going to the pit. I don't care.
All right, so what is your favorite thing to play on the drums?
Ooh, yeah, Chelsea Grin is super fun to play on the drums, particularly because every one of their albums in the Alexander Kohler days, the very first song on the album always has one groove in it that's like a really it's like almost like a jazz groove with metal undertones in it, and I mean, it only lasts for a couple of measures, but it's like it's so cool, and when you nail it, it feels so damn good to play. But they're really technical, so that makes it not as much fun to play, because then I feel like a potato just smashing on the drums. Some that I like to play because they're fast, but they're like not challenging. Impending Doom is one of them. They're like a super hardcore Christian metal band, but they just slam really, really hard, and the beats are really basic. Like especially the feet ostinatos are really basic and easy to nail down. So they're probably one of my favorites. And every session that I play, I end it with one of their songs, because I'm like, I want to feel good. I want to end this session feeling good. So I always end it with one of theirs. But I mean, I could go on with that forever and ever too. There's so many good bands to play.
Okay, we've got a question from Will here for you.
Okay.
He said, I was wondering if you had any sources / theories / speculations for a few teachings of Joseph Smith that had been on his mind lately. Like, what potential sources did Joseph Smith use to come up with the idea of mortal probations?
Yeah, the multiple mortal probations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one, because it's like this is a concept that's dealt with as anti-Mormon today, but it's something that we have like reminiscences of people remembering that Joseph taught them these things. But it really like begins to surface at the very end of Joe's ministry, and during that time, there was somebody who joined the church named Alexander Niebauer. I mean, I've done quite a few episodes on it, on Naked Mormonism. I think I even did a Niebauer episode on Glass Box as well. But this guy was a really important convert to the church, because he converted from Judaism to early Mormonism, and then he became, one of Joe's like champion converts, because that proves that Mormonism is true, that now the Jews are converting to Christianity. So this guy was a really esoteric thinker, and somebody who was really steeped in Jewish mysticism. It's a system known as Kabbalah. And best that I can trace it down, Kabbalah seems to be the source for any of Joe's possible ideas of multiple mortal probations. And Kabbalah has this concept of it's called Gilgul, where essentially every incarnation, it's a transmigration of souls. Every incarnation that you go through, you attempt to fulfill all of the 600 plus commandments in the Torah, and whatever ones you don't fill in one life, then you are reincarnated, and then you attempt to try and fulfill those commandments in your next life, and you go through until you fulfill all 613 of those commandments. So the idea of Joseph teaching multiple mortal probations, it doesn't come from him, it comes from people who are close to him. But it appears that idea, or that concept, comes into Joe's theology at the very, very end of his ministry, which is about the same time that Alexander Niebauer joined the church, and we have that provable direct Kabbalistic link to Joseph Smith. And even that guy even like published articles in the church's periodical talking about the Jews. They were titled The Jews, and he talked about reincarnation and talked about the resurrection of souls within the purview of Jewish mysticism. And he, I think he even writes like printed upon request in his articles, which I read that as like Joseph wanted him to expound on the idea of multiple mortal probations, and therefore gave him a column in the Times and Seasons to just kind of expound on Kabbalah. Really, really fascinating whole idea there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And the next part is why/how did he choose the age of 8 as the age of accountability?
I as best as I can tell, there is not an answer to this. And therefore, I mean, I combed when this question came in, I combed a couple of books, including the Charles Harrell book, This Is My Doctrine. And the best I can come up with is it was totally fucking arbitrary. And it turns out that this is something that Christians have been debating for a long time, whether or not children are sinful by nature, or whether they are saved up until a certain age, and then when they hit the age of reason, then they become sinful or whatever. And like a bunch of different denominations disagree about what is the right answer here. And I think Joe just planted his flag on 8 years old arbitrarily because he was like, I want to be this. And that was it.
Because an
That's the
8-year-old
best
was
answer I got.
standing in front of him, probably.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
they're 8.
Yeah, 8. Yeah. How many of you are? Yeah. No, that's about right.
This one just chose to steal candy from me. That's the age of accountability.
That's
Now I
right.
can spank him for it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, next part of it from Will still is, for the story of Nephi killing Laban, 1 Nephi 4 verse 13, I found a scripture in John 11:50 that sounds the same, but I'm wondering what historically, in the local or broader context of Joseph's life, may have prompted him to include it. Do you think this is why he always has a boner for putting people away?
uh, well contextualized. I think that Joe, so this kind of goes into my thesis of Joseph Smith, that he was a criminal kingpin. And I think that criminal kingpins will, especially if they are setting themselves up as moral paragons or moral guides of a society, that they will have the same situations and the same trappings that force them to act like mafia bosses or criminal kingpins, but they will use the language and the tools at hand in order to justify that behavior. So, and sometimes it's the other way around, where people are radicalized by the language or the information that is available to them. So it's kind of like a reciprocal nature, right? So on the opposite side of that, like the Laffertys, right? The Laffertys used the toolbox that was given to them of Mormon theology in order to justify committing murder. I think that Joseph Smith, as a criminal kingpin, wanted to put people out of the way. He wanted people to not be a problem for him, which oftentimes that meant sending them down the Mississippi. And therefore, he had it in his back pocket, the Christian tool set, that if somebody is a problem, then you can put them out of the way. And that's, that's language, like nation dwindle in unbelief. That's biblical language. I think Joe was able to grab ideas out of Christian theology and even out of the Book of Mormon theology with the sort of Laban story, and he could use those as justification for his actions. I don't think that he was some kind of a theologian and then came to the conclusion, reading the Bible, like, oh, this means God is okay with somebody being put out of the way. I think he wanted somebody put out of the way, and then he went and found the language to justify that morally. Yeah. Complex question.
It is.
Sorry.
No, don't be. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
No, well, I want to ask some follow-ups. So, I don't have any sources for anything because I'm just like a absorber of memes. Like I'm not a reader like you guys, so I'm sorry. But no, the reason why I ask these questions is because like I'll pick them up from like these mystics and all that type of hermeticism. There's like a group of people in the psychedelic community that are really into that stuff, and so I'll hear them say it and I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds a lot like what Joseph Smith came up with. How did he come up with it? And so like when you said Kabbalah for multiple mortal probations, like, oh yeah, well obviously, like, yeah, that's if there's a direct connection there. For the 8-year-old one, the mystic connection is like your root chakra is formed supposedly like in your first 7 years of life.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I just wonder if that's all the information I have. I can't give you any more to say if there's a direct link between those two things. And then the follow-up question really is, before he wrote the Book of Mormon, or when he rewrote the First Nephi, right? Was there anybody that he was thinking about putting away, or like potentially that it was justified around that time? Like, I'm just curious if it was like salient to him when he wrote it. I mean, I know like later in his life, he was definitely putting a lot of people away, or potentially, allegedly, I don't know. But I'm wondering if, but he wrote the Book of Mormon at the beginning. I'm wondering if there's any direct tie to something specific
that was happening right then. Yeah.
So there's we just don't know much about Joe's personality pre-Book of Mormon stuff. We have accounts and interviews, we have affidavits, we have people's opinions of him, but it's really hard to put ourselves into his mindset before Book of Mormon authorship, because we don't have any of his writings, right? Pre that. So where I'm going with this is one thing that strikes me as very odd in Joseph's very early timeline, and this is when he was like an early teenager, is that somebody, according to Lucy, according to his mom, somebody tried to kill him when he was like very young, like a young teenager. They laid it outside in wait outside of the Smith home, and when Joseph stepped outside, they fired a gun at him, but it missed and it embedded in a wagon wheel behind him. So I don't know what circumstances would lead somebody to want to assassinate a teenager, or to kill a teenager, but that doesn't happen just apropos of nothing, right? Somebody doesn't just wake up and say, I'm going to walk out and go kill some random teenager that I see. Well, I mean, it does happen.
It happens
schools,
now,
I guess.
but yeah.
Right. But like, I can
that was
only,
a target. Yeah.
Yes, like I can only surmise that was a premeditated attempt to kill him when he was however old at this time. So I think that Joseph Smith, like a lot of people, especially Mormons, will want to portray him as like this very holy, very, maybe he had some troubles with drinking, maybe he had some, things that he was seeking forgiveness for, but he was a good man and he was a hard worker. And like, I don't see that narrative, because I don't see any evidence for that narrative. I see this indicator that somebody tried to assassinate him when he was a teenager, and I see a long career of being a criminal from that point forward. And I see somebody as probably all of the time entertaining ideas of, if somebody is a problem to him and he can overpower them somehow, then they are no longer a problem to him. I think I don't think he valued human life that highly, except his own.
Right.
Kind of a circuitous answer, but yeah.
I don't think he valued human life much either. Yeah. Jen, she had this to tack on to it with expanding Will's questions. As a nevermost secular science-minded person in Morador, I'm like, oh, you poor thing. I find Mormon theological concepts bizarre. Even those of us who used to be Mormon find it bizarre now too. But when you grow up in it, I guess it's not so bizarre. But anyway, mostly in any theology, generally bizarre, but I digress. So regarding multiple probations, please explain this. Is this a sort of Mormon reincarnation / karma?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like to think of this in the context of Carl Sagan's, like, we're all stardust, right? And that's kind of the best way to like give a modern example of what seems to make sense with Mormon reincarnation. Basically, like, yeah, our intelligences, our energies, our essences or whatever are organized by celestial creation, and that celestial creation is God with his wives, right? So the act of creating that is not a creation of matter, because matter cannot be created or destroyed. It is an organization of that spiritual matter, that stardust, right? And then once it is organized, then that creates or organizes it into its premortal existence, at which point then it selects a body and selects a family, and then it is born, and that is its mortal, and then it goes on to its after death, post-mortal existence. Well, the concept that you can sin so bad by claiming or by saying I'm denying the existence of Jesus Christ, that the punishment for that is not just damnation, suffering, weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth, so on and so forth, but that the torture or that the process that hell or that outer darkness puts you through is so brutal that it disorganizes your matter, your spiritual energy. It disorganizes that stardust, and then that frees you up, your spiritual energies as a free entities floating about in the cosmos, to then be reorganized by another god and godparent pair. At which point, once you're reorganized, then you can select another mortal body and you can try it all again. And if you live again and continue to deny that Jesus Christ existed in your new incarnation, then, well, you're going to be disorganized again, and we're just going to keep doing this same old process. So that's kind of the idea of like Mormon reincarnation, and that's consistent with how Eliza R. Snow talked about it, how Brigham Young talked about it, how Orson Pratt talked about it in The Seer. It makes sense, and it's an elegant solution in my mind.
Yeah. So I gotta say, Mormons really take the deathbed repentance thing further than the Catholics do. Oh my God. Well, if you die and you go to the next life, you still can get into celestial kingdom. Just accept all of this. So even Hitler has a chance. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my God. She asked also, is the premortal existence a separate deal?
I think it's just one of the stops along the way.
Yeah, it's
according
just
to
all
this
part of it.
whole concept. Yeah.
Premortal existence too is, I think, honestly, I think that one is might be a little closer to other religions than the next life shit. Of course, I think that what Mormons have done, as they say, the next life. Way I was raised is they're like, other religions don't quite understand everything. They just stopped at the, spirit world, spirit prison, spirit paradise, spirit prison thing. They didn't realize that there's another level afterwards, and so it's just tacking on more. But it seems like most people believe what we lived before we were born. And so anyway, I don't know. So it's all such funny stuff. And she asked if these topics were front of mind when we were Mormon or just kind of background noise. Yeah. That all depended on who the fuck your teacher was.
I never heard this. I mean, I was, left as a teenager, but like,
yeah.
I assume that there are probably some BYU professors who would talk about this. There are probably some stake presidents who maybe.
I heard about it in primary. I heard about it in Young Women's. I heard about it in Sunday school. I heard about it everywhere. But that's, like I said, it depends on who your teacher is and who your bishop is, right. Whether you win or lose at Bishop Roulette, because it just depends on how much of a focus somebody wants to make on that. And that's really how often you hear about it. And so,
right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, once you get to the temple, you hear all the time, but yeah, which you never did. So
no, exactly. Tyler has to follow up to the Lucy story. Joseph
yes.
possibly being assassinated as a kid. Do you think it's at all likely the writer, I think you said it was Lucy, made that up or exaggerated? It seems to fit a persecution narrative, but also that's quite a thing to make up. If it were part of the persecution narrative, she would have directly linked it with the Book of Mormon, with the gold plate story, with it, whatever. However, she doesn't. Now, Lucy is the first one to talk about the Smith family being persecuted and to put this narrative forward, and she didn't draw that connection specifically. So therefore, I have no reason to believe that it was tied to Mormon persecution. Did she exaggerate it? She probably exaggerated a whole lot about the early family, but I agree with you. It's quite a thing to just make up out of whole cloth. But it's also something that you can make up out of whole cloth after any of the parties responsible are dead, or who had anything to say about it are dead, and there's no identifiable information. So even if she did make a name or whatever, the person might not have ever known that she said it, to therefore dispute that she said it. So she could make it up without any consequence, but I don't think there's really anything in her biographical sketches that we consider as wholly made up out of whole cloth, and that is something that I don't think she made up. I think it really did happen.
I suspect he was messing around with somebody else's girl, even
Yeah.
at the age of 14 or younger.
Entirely possible. Or
Very likely.
or he scammed somebody, or
He
who
stole
knows?
somebody's seer stone. When? How old
Yeah.
was he when he did that?
Yeah, like 16 or something, right? Like that's
Yeah.
entirely possible too. I don't know. There's just no
Yeah.
way to tell.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Daybell murderers. This is another
Ugh.
question is, how do their ideas fit to justify their horrific acts? Yeah. That's a whole crazy ass section of Mormonism there too. I wasn't following it so much because this is the trial, because this is when I'm in and out of the hospital with all sorts of shit these last few months. One of my sisters was though, and she's like reading the daily updates when I'm trying to get pleural fluid drained off of my lung, and she's in there. Shannon, you want to know what they said in the trial next? No. She tell me anyway, and I don't remember any of it. But I do know they're just such a, Mormon, but such a weird faction of it, and everything, that there's actually a lot of Mormons that just don't want to claim them as Mormon.
Are they
Yeah,
a
the
weird
whole-
faction though? I thought they were
Yeah,
corporate.
yeah, they are pretty weird. They believe like they're demons inside of you. And
Yeah,
that
the
was
zombie
which,
thing.
yeah, the zombie thing, which Mormons really don't
Yeah.
believe. And that was the justification for murdering them. But it was really because that they wanted their spouse out of their way to get married.
Yes.
Mm.
Plus, wasn't there a $1 million life insurance policy also involved?
Yeah, she got indicted for some sort of insurance policy thing as well.
Yeah.
So,
I think this is a lot like the Lafferty thing. And
yeah, it is. Yeah. She called her ex-husband, the husband that was killed, his demon name instead of his actual name at the end.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So there's Mormon parts of it, but there's lots of parts where they just go off and things.
Yeah, because the
really
fact
common.
that they're Mormon isn't, I think that's not necessarily why it was done. I think being raised Mormon and getting into the weird factions didn't help, but I think there's a lot of the problems, like with the Laffertys, where there was more problems going on than just being Mormon. And so I think also they might have just used what they knew from religion to justify the behavior they were doing.
The toolbox. Mormonism creates
Yeah.
dangerous men.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
I think Chad made her husband into a demon so that it would be easier to kill him.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
More than just how to justify it, because they want to do this, so therefore justify it this way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think her daughter was like 18, 19. So that was a little
17.
That was old enough that she would have seen problems with Chad.
Yeah.
So that's why I think she was murdered too.
Yeah. It's very weird. Yeah. Ugh. Anyway.
It's
so crazy.
It's why like we champion the atheist cause. Religion ruins everything.
Yeah,
because if people want a reason or a justification to do the most heinous, immoral mass murder shit, you got a book to do it. They got a belief system to do it. Fuck, I've been trying to. I don't follow true crime very well, so I haven't been paying attention to the Daybell stuff. But like, man, it's obvious if they believe in Mormonism, they have all the tools necessary to be able to say, "Oh, well, I had to put somebody out of the way."
Yeah, and that way they can justify it as this is the right thing to do.
Yeah,
exactly. Lafferty's did the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much to it. There was like one attempted murder that I completely forgot about when the indictments came down.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
But
JC just commented they were holding big meetings in the Mormon buildings and went to the temple the day before every murder, according to the podcasters
Yeah.
following the case. And also, yeah, the Daybells were not excommunicated for apostasy. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that, I mean, they might be later at some point.
They probably
who
will.
knows?
Probably
But
will.
yeah,
Yeah, they were
that's a
paying
really
tithing
interesting
though,
detail.
weren't they?
Oh yeah,
As
they
long as they're
were.
paying their
They
tithing, they're
and
okay.
they went to the temple a lot. They did.
Yeah, yeah, they did.
Like they were like the once a week type of Mormon.
Ugh. I was doing that at one point. Ugh.
Skin is crawling.
I
Do
just
not
am
like
like,
this topic. It's
all
so
of these
fucked up.
things that I used to do. I'm like, why the fuck did I read the Book of Mormon so many times? It didn't change. It was the same shit every time. There was one time in those 67 plus times or 65 plus times where I justified I got it worked out in my head how to justify Nephi killing Laban. And I didn't write it in my scriptures because I was like, oh, there it is. Now I understand it. Okay, I'm fine with that. And then the next time through, I couldn't remember what it was. I've never been able to remember what that justification was. I've never remembered it. Next time I'm like, what is it? No. Yeah.
Nits will make lice.
I don't know. And then
Wow.
of course I love Star Trek, and Star Trek 2, needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, and all that. Yeah. God. Anyway, all right. Tyler has some questions. What do you think is the most effective way to get the church to change? Specifically, how do you think listeners could help the church to change?
If Tyler is here, I would like to hear his thoughts on this.
Tyler is here, yes.
Because I would like to, this is something maybe we can kind of open up more to the rest of the panel as well, because I think this is one of those questions where there is no right answer. There is no simple answer. I think there are a litany of good answers for this. So Tyler, do you want to share your thoughts on
it? Yeah, sorry, my background looks like I'm either from in heaven or in hell.
Appropriate.
Part of why I asked you is I'm not entirely sure. I'm always one for, I think political action is a big deal, especially for the major stuff. But that's not really a great individual action type of thing, because I think it's, with how big and powerful the church is, it's kind of hard to keep them in, especially since it seems like they're very money focused and they don't have to report anything or anything like that. It's just hard to really, I don't know. It seems like it would be hard to get real change. I think the best thing you can do individually is kind of raise awareness and talking to people around you and that sort of thing. And if there's a protest, like when they have the Protect Every Child protests, go into those type of things, but that's about it. It's a real question.
Yeah. I know we've mentioned before that the changes that we've seen made have happened because the membership has forced it to happen. And that is, I think, one of the most effective ways to change them. But it's going to takes a lot of effort. And I think that eventually their policies on LGBTQ plus will change. They will have to, because we already have bishops now just saying, no, that's just a metaphor. It's not really, people are people are born this way. This is what science says, yada, yada, and so they don't hold with the party line on the church's party line. And so I think it will change. I think they won't be doing marriages, of course, but their attitudes towards them will have to change because the membership will force it to happen. But to get the membership to force it, what happens is I think it takes the ex-mos and the formans, as Mr. Deity says, the former Mormons out there pointing out over and over and over the inconsistencies, pointing out the things that slip through the cracks, the things that we bring up and stuff like that. And so I think it takes a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a hell of a lot to make it change. But I think that's really the only way we can. It's just not going to be fast.
I also think, not to put a downer, but I think that kind of larger society becoming more accepting of LGBTQ and all the different issues that the church has, just being, less misogynistic and those things too. I find that to be the core driving force, and Exmos are maybe the you could call it like a spearhead, maybe, but kind of the weight behind that spear seems to be the rest of the world. Because if the rest of the world thinks that it's fine to discriminate against any given group that the church wants to, and we're being loud about it, I don't think the church is terribly concerned about that.
Right.
Seems like they're more concerned, at least to me, about what the rest of the world thinks. It's just that we are much more like the rest of the world, and we don't seem as out there as Mormons do.
That is true. It's a hard balance, I think. It's hard too, because Mormons are so inured against ex-Mormons, and this whole, I'm afraid to listen to anything you say because then you'll convince me to leave. And so they put up such a mental block. It's a hard call. I mean, like the anti-Semitism, the overt anti-Semitism has gotten less from church leadership. And it was extreme during World War II. In fact, it was very obvious. It was very extreme, is very much there. But I don't think it's something you see as much now. But yeah, misogyny, I think, is going to be really hella hard to pull out, because we can't even get it out of the society we live in. It's still here. And so, but yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know. But yeah, the only way they get change to happen is the membership themselves. Enough people leave over something, they will change it.
Yeah. There are, I think, quite a few different ways to look at this, and a couple of comments I think I'll read as well, from the Will in the private chat here. The way to get them change is to keep pretending like it's going to change. Fiona Givens and Jeffrey R. Holland both have video clips floating around that really gave away the game. I think that's one way of looking at it. Then JC says in the chat, bravo to the 21st century saints and Britvengers who just got the UK church to start doing background checks for those called to work with vulnerable people and kids. ATC and bad press works slowly.
Yes.
So I think there are just like many different prongs to look at this, and to characterize like the ex-Mormon sphere, or from the believing perspective, the anti-Mormon sphere, as like the spearhead, I think is just one of the many prongs of the angles of attack to try and get the church to alter, adjust, and change its course. There's obviously, for big monumental shifts, there needs to be government action. I mean, government action is going to be the only thing that causes it to change. And the church has a whole lot of money that they can throw at individuals within the government to make sure that government action doesn't happen for as long as possible. But even then, when there was government action that said gay marriage is cool in a Supreme Court ruling, the church released its policy saying, no, not in our fucking church. Yeah. No, you can't even be children of gay parents and be a faithful member of this church unless you disavow them. And then the pressure became so immense from faithful Mormons that they were forced to walk it back 3 years later. That is such a resounding win that shows that another one of these prongs is the believing membership saying, hey, I'm not cool with this. This is not okay to me. And them standing up in testimony meeting and making veiled references to the church being too politically powerful in their testimony, or things like that, right? The church publishing their recent thing about political neutrality and making sure that people aren't talking about politics from the pulpit. They were doing that in response to so many people speaking politics from the pulpit. That came both in the form of conservative bishops getting up there and grandstanding conspiracy theories and QAnon bullshit, as well as from members who are progressive, who have gay kids and say that they love their gay kids regardless of what the church tells them to say about that or believe or feel. So like the individuals within the church, I think the believing members, the butts in the seats Mormons, are the sole momentum shifters of the church. They are able to, if the church is gaining momentum in a direction, and the November 2015 policy is a perfect example of this. If the church is gaining momentum in one direction, and the people say, no, we're not going in that direction, then that momentum is completely lost. The church has to reverse its direction and walk back and look like they got egg on their face, and they did. So government action, there's the ex-Mormons and the anti-Mormons, there's the journalists who are calling it out and who are talking about the church having a huge dragon hoard of billions of dollars and being fined for criminal activity. For not complying with regulations, I guess, but it's criminal activity, right? Let's be clear about this. There's the social pressure. This church is made or broken by public relations, and their PR machine is extremely sensitive to every single thing that is ever published on the internet about the church. It goes through their servers. They collect that data. They know who said it. They know what the context of the conversation or the post or whatever was. All that data is being collected by the church. They know what all of us are saying about them. So the leadership is aware of what these problems are and what these pressures are. The individual members, the public figures, everybody calling on the church to change. And then there's the slow cycle of leadership changeover. It's very slow, but leadership changeover does lead to changes, right? I mean, the removal of the priesthood ban for Black members would not have happened. It could not have happened under any other prophet than Spencer W. Kimball, because that's the prophet who it happened under. Every other prophet before him was either too conservative themselves or were too weak to stand up to the conservatives and the apostles. But enough of a leadership changeover had happened that there were too few conservative bigots on the apostleship, and all they had to do was send them down to South America for a couple of weeks, and the priesthood ban is lifted. So the changeover of leaderships is a slow changer as well.
Marky Peterson was a hard one to fight.
Yeah,
he really
absolutely.
was.
He was a force majeure. He was very hard to deal with. He absolutely, and instead of dealing with him, they shipped him away, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not how you deal with a problem. That's as close to sweeping it under the rug as you possibly can get.
Yeah.
But
And
I think
probably also the reason why it's not an actual section in the DNC. It's just a official proclamation.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think another angle to consider this too is like the conversations that we have about the church are very different than the conversations that the leadership are having about the church. I had a very, I think a small window into church leadership. There's just last weekend at MHA, and Julie, you were there for this conversation as well. But I was discussing with an apostle of the Community of Christ, as well as a Joseph Smith descendant. If you know who it is, you know. And discussing with him some of the challenges that the leadership has been dealing with, more progressive issues. And they are currently in the process of revising their marriage statutes. And in order to revise those marriage statutes, of course, they have to consider the global church. They have to consider all of the hundreds of different cultures and the, dozens and dozens of countries that they have a stake in, have a reasonable number of members. And they have to consider what the cultural pressures are in those areas and make a policy that doesn't conflict with the cultural norms of that society or the laws of that society, and still are something that is seen as a progressive move in Western society. So they had this revision of one of their sections that specifically says that monogamy is only approved of. They were able to remove monogamy out, which for a moment granted that polygamy would be, or polyamory would be, approved of in the Community of Christ. However, another revision came along because some of the pressures from other countries that are a bit more conservative, a bit more theocratic than America, forced them to reinsert the monogamy provision into that revelation. Because there's that, like, these pressures are far greater than any of us see or ever consider. They're having conversations about a corporate conglomeration. We are having conversations about an immoral church. Those are just two foundationally different things.
And also think of this too. I mean, we did just recently, I mean, the Tribune actually put an article about this just a couple days ago. A new slight change that might not seem like a big deal, but really is to any of us who grew up watching this church and seeing especially how Utah votes. But here's what the statement is that, and Gordon Monson has this article. The article is called "The LDS Church's Message is a Red Flag Waved at Its Members, Utah Republicans, Donald Trump, among others." And here's what they said. And this is new. I mean, I grew up in something very different than this. "Dear brothers and sisters, citizens of the United States have the privilege and duty of electing office holders and influencing public policy. Participation in the political process affects their communities and nation today and in the future. We urge Latter-day Saints to be active citizens by registering, exercising the right to vote, and engaging in civic affairs, always demonstrating Christ-like love and civility in public discourse. We urge you to spend the time needed to become informed about the issues and candidates you will be considering. Some principles compatible with the gospel may be found in various political parties, and members should seek candidates who best embody these principles. Members should also study candidates carefully and vote for those who have demonstrated integrity, compassion, and service to others, regardless of party affiliation. Merely voting a straight ticket or voting based on tradition without careful study of candidates and their positions on important issues is a threat to democracy and inconsistent with revealed standards. While the church affirms its institutional neutrality regarding political parties and issues, it may occasionally post information about particular issues that directly affect the mission, teachings, operations of the church, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, this is new because we used to hear from ones like Ezra Taft Benson, you know, Republican, vote Republican, vote Republican. Utah always votes Republican.
Didn't
you know,
Benson give a talk that you can't be a Democrat and a faithful Latter-day Saint?
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
It was either him or somebody before him. I'm trying to remember who.
Yeah,
and Hubie Brown took issue with that because he was the only Democrat in apostle at the time, and he was like, no, you go fuck yourself, Benson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
merely voting a straight ticket is very, very, very new from the church.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that in and of itself, I mean, you can interpret this various way, which you always can with every legal thing coming from the church, which any statement coming, you know, it's a legal statement. So, but this went deeper than they usually do. And I think it's because the church they finally realized, you know, that this attitude they've had about voting before helped produce somebody like Donald Trump.
Yes.
Where we ended up with him just because he was Republican.
Yep.
That doesn't mean anything. You know, right now we've got Mike Lee and Mitt Romney in there. And Mitt Romney is the better person. Even as shitty as a person as he is, he's still better senator than Mike Lee is.
He's the most progressive, like, public Republican that we've had throughout the entire Trump presidency and for quite some time. I mean, if you really want to see it, go look at their statements, their differing statements about the whole thing with Donald Trump this past week. Yeah.
I mean, you can see it right there between Mike Lee and Mitt Romney. They get put in because they're Mormon Republicans and, you know, this is Utah. So anyway, this was interesting. I mean, it's not a huge change, but this is a change. It's an important change. So, yeah.
I think, I mean, that also, like, we read the Next Mormons and we're like, yeah, okay, so all the millennials are running from the church like it's on fire. The church has known that for decades. They know that the younger generation is always running away from the church, but now it has reached a critical mass where there are more people leaving than they are staying in the church of the youngest generations, and that is terrifying for them. And they know that a lot of that stems from younger people generally being more progressive and older people generally being more conservative. So if you want to make a church that is going to retain younger membership, you can't be radically conservative. And the church is a radically conservative institution. So they're trying to put on this purple veneer. But everybody who has been around for longer than a few days knows that this is a bright red church, and it always will be.
It is very much. I mean, it's the conservative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, I mean, this is not what Glass Box is about, but I'm just gonna say it. There's one side thing is the difference in political parties is going to be their attitude about abortion and whether being pro-life or not, which is why they call being against abortion pro-life, even though nothing that they do is pro-life. Anyway.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you think the church will ever have fewer than 500,000 members? From Tyler. And what do you think they do with the Enzyme Peak Fund if membership were to shrink that far? That's such a lovely thought.
I know.
Less than 500,000 members.
I feel like I'm just like mentally frolicking through a prairie with flowers around. Like, it's such a wonderful feeling.
Isn't that like the membership of Salt Lake County?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Well, and Will also adds, the church is bright. I said the church is bright red, but the people aren't bright red. Yeah,
No,
I mean
not.
that's part of it as well.
They are not.
I think the church will always be over the 1 million members threshold because they're at the critical mass. Like, they're at the critical mass that they will continue to convert as fast as they are losing, because their missionary sales efforts are just so damned aggressive. So I don't think that's ever going to happen, but that huge hoard of money, they are going to continue to fight and kick every waking second to retain every goddamn cent inside of that vault. And that is going to slowly crumble the church, because look, if they wanted to invest that money into the future of the church, they wouldn't invest in stocks. They would invest in missionary efforts in foreign countries, in places that are not privy to Western education. And they are investing the missionaries. They have the boots on the ground in those countries, but they don't have any other infrastructure. They're trying to build these modular temples to try and build some kind of infrastructure out there. But that is like, they could use that money to build chapels all to dot the globe more than they do so right now. And they currently aren't. Instead, they're using that money to buy more stocks, and they're demolishing churches. So yeah, if they were to shift their investment strategy to be for the good of the church, then I see that money would eventually maybe plateau and stay where it is. It would never go down, right? Like, they have so much money that they can't possibly go down at this point, so, in any appreciable way. They might, when the stock market crashes, they might lose $100 billion of their investment. That's going to be recouped in the following 5 to 10 years after that, and no more temples are going to shut down because of it. No church, chapels are going to shut down because of it. No essential church functions are going to shut down because of losing $100 billion. So they have so much money that they could lose $100 billion, and the functions of the church would continue as planned. That is spitting in God's face amounts of money. That is horrifying amounts of money. So that money will always be there. What will happen to it? It will just keep growing and keep growing and keep growing until the church has enough wealth reasonably in the next 2 to 3 decades. If they continue their investment strategy, they stand to become the wealthiest single entity on the planet. That's fucking bonkers to me, but it's possible.
And frightening.
Yeah.
Very frightening. Very, very frightening. Speaking of Bohemian Rhapsody earlier. All right. Tyler wants to know, what do you want for the future of Glass Box Podcast?
Ooh.
What do we want? We want to have 10-hour episodes. No, I'm just kidding.
Fuck yourself. I gotta edit that shit. No. Blasphemer.
Oh my God, they practically are sometimes. We need a future of this is us learning to not talk so much. Yeah. I don't know. I like what we do. It would be nice to know if we had an impact. That is actually something in the future I would like to see, is to feel like we're not just talking to our elite few of you who like to listen to us and who pay us to do it, but to impact more. It would be nice, mainly because we are trying to hit on those things that it's easy to forget about them. It's easy to let them, slide away through the cracks. And bringing them up is something that is valuable. At least I like to see it as valuable. And so it would be nice to know if we had an impact, a big impact that would happen. That's what I'd like to see, a snowball effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with that in kind of the long-term vague sense of the idea. Short-term goals, I think something that would be really fun. I've never brought this up to Shannon or before on the show or anything, but I've wanted to do it for a while, is to do a 24-hour live stream of something.
Oh my God. That'd be fun.
Yeah, right. I don't know what the purpose would be, or why we would do it, or what we would fill the 24 hours with, but I have to think that it would be a lot of fun to do a live stream that a whole, like we have right now, a whole 7 people would watch. But it just feels so much like something Shannon and I would do, and it just feels like the trend of the podcast. So
oh my God.
Tyler,
well, you wouldn't have to
finally
edit it.
Finally a real episode. The others are so short. Yes, thank you, Tyler.
Because Will is like, no to 10 but yes to 24. What? Something he doesn't have to edit, in other words. So a live
We need
stream,
a
I guess.
EMT on call for Shannon.
I know. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was the first visit to the hospital this year was right after we finished recording the first Saints episode. I'm like, I hate this book. This book wants to kill me.
In fact, I maybe I can show it here. I made a meme for that immediately after. I never posted it, never sent it to anybody, but
no,
should
you
I
didn't.
should I show it here? Just
I
for
think
these
Alex
listeners?
Alex sent you a picture of me after my surgery.
Yeah.
sent
And
it
you
to
were like,
me.
okay, here we go.
I sent it to you, Julie. Okay,
You
that's
did,
right.
yeah.
Yep. Let me see if I can find it here.
Oh my God. Oh God. I know. Alex is like, she's still alive, even though she doesn't look like it. Oh my God.
Dear.
Yeah,
Of
that
course,
was...
I can't find it immediately offhand. Yeah, okay, so there we go. All right, I'll show it to the camera. Now, it was on like Facebook. I made it the meme through Facebook, so this is going to be terrible resolution, but I'm going to do my best to show it. So there's Bryce after recording the first Saints episode, my head down on the desk. And Shannon after recording the first Saints episode in a hospital bed. So,
oh my God. Yeah.
yeah,
That was fun. Yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah. And I remember coming out of finishing the recording on that one thinking, I really hope I made sense, because I spent that whole time in terror that I was having a heart attack. And so I was just like, and then Alex is like, why didn't you just say, I think I need to go to the hospital and stop the recorder? I'm like, because I was like, well, I better finish because I don't know when I'll get back.
I might die
God.
right now. We can't have an unfinished Glass Box episode in the hopper.
I'm like,
Priorities,
okay,
damn it.
I'm not Elvis. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? I want to have a different impact than that. I want to have a better impact than this. Doing this podcast killed me. Yeah. Got it.
All right, fair enough. So
Yeah.
maybe 24-hour show is not a good goal for the future of the show.
Fix the pulmonary issue and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. So
Yeah.
we got a couple boxes to check before we get
I
there.
know. in case you're all wondering, at this point, they've ruled out, I think, all the life-threatening issues that could be causing the pleural effusion that's still going on. And I go in tomorrow to get drained again. This will be my 10th time tomorrow. And they've ruled out heart failure and kidney failure and liver failure and cancer. And they've ruled out autoimmune disease. At this point, I think they're fairly certain it's pulmonary hypertension, which is a rare disease, of course, not because this is me. I like to have the rare diseases. So anyway, we're still not quite there, but we're getting it figured out. So I'm really hoping that once I can maybe get that treated, we can go and not have any more pleural effusions. That would be nice. So.
Will's comment.
Will says he's going to be out in Utah next week to let him know if I want Tyler and him to give me a blessing. Yes, I do.
And the comment before from Tyler is
I'm collecting my I'm collecting my thoracentesis like dragons. Yes, I am. I'm like, why the fuck not? Let's do it. So I keep adding more medications on too. Holy shit. So,
fun times. Good stuff.
Oh, my life is really fun. Yes. So anyway, all right. So favorite media of great price material that we've done so far.
Oh.
We both were just like, I do not know how the fuck to answer that question.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm like, well, any of the times I've done books on there is always a favorite. I mean, that one to me always is. The Gate to Women's Country was super fun. And I really hope I sounded clear on that one because I was just so excited we were doing it and that Bryce liked the book. But also there's the one that Bryce brought up is when we did the number 23 movie.
Yeah, I think that's my pick is number 23 because it was
that
like
one was good.
It was just one that like the media was it's an off the beaten path movie that I don't think a lot of people have seen, and like it was off the beaten path deep Mormon shit that not a lot of people know about, and it was just like was such a fun long form deep dive that it was such a fun confluence. I think that was absolutely my choice. But I mean, that was one where when I got it in, I was like, all right, I just am going to look at the episodes list and just, I don't honestly know. Cause like we choose media of great price cause it's like our favorite thing that week. So it's like every time we do it, we choose it because it's like really, really good and fitting. And we try and like tie it together with the main segment and stuff. So it's super hard to nail down just one.
They are fun. And especially when we changed it to, instead of me just presenting a movie or book, it became us watching it together and then talking about it.
Yeah.
And that was fun. There's sometimes we've done a movie I've never seen, like number 23. That was the first time I saw it. And that's not always the case with us.
Yeah.
So,
usually I'm like, Shannon, what are we watching?
Yeah, it's usually, well, Shannon, pick a movie you've seen 27 times. Let's watch that. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's the other fun thing. I mean, I love watching movies with people where they will sit and talk to me about it. I love that. I do that with movies in the same way I do with books. And so that's what made it hard to pick which ones of these are favorites. It's like ever since we started doing that, those are the favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Will's comment about the number 23. That movie helped me stop taking so many edibles. It's a trip, right? It's a crazy movie.
So he wants to know, Tyler also wants to know, what is the best cover of a song and is it better than the original?
Oh.
You go first.
Me first? Okay.
Yes.
Only one comes to mind for me, and that is War Pigs. Now, War Pigs is such an amazing song. But Acacia Strain, which is like a basically just a grind metal band, grindcore band, and they covered it, and it is okay, so when I listen to metal, like you when you play an instrument for 15 years and you listen to music that has that instrument, all you hear is that instrument. So War Pigs has the sections in it where it's just the hi-hat compressions and then a drum riff that is kind of centerpiece of that song that kind of drives through the song. Well, Acacia Strain took that as an opportunity to let their drummer just go ape shit. And those drum breaks are so good, so yummy, and so true to the original essence of War Pigs that I think that's got to be my favorite.
There you go. Well, my favorite one of them is The Sound of Silence by Disturbed, which I think is far better than the original. And I do think that is just far. I've heard 27 different versions, different covers of that song, and they are beautifully done. I even heard some on the cello with the cello quartet and stuff, and they're beautiful. But the one Disturbed did has a whole different impact. There's, because of the way he sings certain ones, like the part with those written on tenement halls or walls. That line, especially when you hear it, the way he grinds it out, but the feeling and the that you get from it has a different feeling, a deeper, darker, more poignant feeling to it than the original. And it's just amazing to listen to. I don't know how many times I've listened to that one, but I go back and I'll listen to Simon and Garfunkel and I nope, I still like Disturbed better. And the other one where I think it's also better than the original is Bohemian Rhapsody, done by the Muppets. And I don't know how many of you have heard it. If you haven't, when we finish this, I want you to go listen to it, go watch it. And I mean, you get different ones taking different parts, the head banging part, that's the Electric Lights Orchestra going, and that kind of thing. But the best part, and the reason why, is when they get to the Mama, I Killed a Man section, because when I heard the Muppets did, I was like, how are they going to do that? This is the Muppets. The Muppets are nice guys, a little kind of weird, but they're the nice guy. And then they get to that and it's Animal. And the whole time, all he does is, Mama, 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 all the way through. It is the funniest thing ever. So anyway, that cover is better than all of the others, including the menopause one, and that one is a good second. But that cover of it with the Muppets, go listen to it. That one's the best.
Excellent. Or if you're looking for a Sounds of Silence cover that's not Disturbed but is also exceptionally good, Sounds of Cylons. However, it contains spoilers for Battlestar Galactica. So if you don't want the spoilers, do not. No, don't. But it is an excellent cover. It's so good.
Does it have the Cylons from the original Battlestar Galactica?
No. It's all the newer series. It's all based on the newer series.
The original one with the lights and the sound and everything. They had such a specific sound. I didn't.
Well, those Cylons are in the newer.
Are they in the new one? Okay,
yeah, they're just like
really
they're just like seen as like the prototypes, and then the Cylons that we see are like the new generation. They're like the super enlightened Cylons. I say enlightened because it's super Mormon.
Now, Julie says that the cover of Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley, which I haven't heard, but I want to know if it's better than John Bon Jovi, because his is fantastic. His is the only one I'll listen to. Though I will say Isaac Raskin started writing out verses of that for me to sing on the Iron Rouse show one time, but then what's his name sang it in Congress and he couldn't bring himself to finish. But I really liked it. I wanted to do it. I told him to try to Sound of Silence, do the sounds of Aaron, but he hasn't done it yet. So we'll see what happens.
A shame. And to answer Tyler's question about the drummer for Acacia Strain, comparable to Neil Peart. No, Neil Peart is an excellent drummer. Acacia Strain drummer is a pretty standard metal drummer. No real exceptional behavior that's like, wow, that's pioneering or anything, but he's just hits really hard and plays fast. And like I said, what the most important thing is he captured the essence of War Pigs, and that's hard to do when you're covering a song, keeping the same feel of the original song, but just doing it slightly differently. And they did that. And like Neil Peart is an excellent drummer, but like there are so many others. Like most people know Neil Peart's name or they know Joey Jordison's name, but like there are so many other prog drummers that I think are better than Neil Peart. Danny Carey and Mike Portnoy, both of them are like, there's a specific drum ostinato that is known as Portnoy's. When you have a drum thing that is named after you, you are an incredible drummer. Mike Portnoy is Dream Theater and Adrenaline Mob and a whole bunch of different projects. Danny Carey is Tool, of course. Like these are unbelievably like talented and special drummers. They are technically sophisticated. Acacia Strange is just fast and hits hard, and I love that too. Don't get me wrong. That's great fun as well.
Excellent. Okay, now, let me get back to that. I'm on the wrong thing. Tyler wants to know. He has a whole bunch of questions for us. If you could visit any place in the United States plus its territories for free, where would you visit and why? Where would you go?
I think I would go to Puerto Rico just because it's such a cool place from all the pictures I have seen of it. It looks so beautiful. I love like tropical climate is super, super nice, and scuba diving. And I kind of, I don't know, maybe I just romanticize Puerto Rican culture a bit, but I think it would be super cool to just like plug into the community there and just live there for a couple of months. I think that would be just an absolute dream. That's my choice.
I think one of mine would be Alaska. And there's been so many pictures. And then, of course, there was also the film Alaska, which it's a fictional film. And it was directed by Fraser Heston, who's Charlton Heston's son. And Charlton Heston actually acted in it as well, partly to get people to go watch it, to bring his name to it. But the film, I mean, the story itself was stupid as fuck. But the pictures they showed, these shots they showed of Alaska, I was like, he needs to do nature films because he did such a beautiful job shooting just the landscape of Alaska. And I just want to see it. I would love to go there and go visit it. And I love snow anyway, because that's just me. Summer is my least favorite season. But that's one place. And Maine is another place I'd like to see. And part of that is you've got just the wild and crazy Atlantic out there, and which is not a peaceful ocean. And I think on that section of Maine, it's definitely not peaceful. And I just would love to stand there and just look at it and watch it. But yeah, those are two places I'd like to go.
Awesome.
I used to want to say I wanted to live in Alaska, but the problem is I'm too prone to seasonal affective disorder. And I know that would be a bad thing. A place that's dark 4 months of the year would not be the place for me.
That's fair.
Yes.
Oh, what was that? That was actually a pretty good vampire movie. 30 Days of Night. Is that the one? But I remember that was a surprisingly good vampire movie. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Man, we really have to watch Priest one of these days for Blast Box.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite vampire flicks because the
if we
vampires are
can't,
not regular vampires like we usually see.
We do
They're
a
just
show
animals.
about a religion, and if we can't find a way to shoehorn a movie named Priest into the media segment for that, then we are clearly not cut out for our
We
jobs.
have to, even just because it's Paul Bettany and Carl Urban. I'm like,
Okay.
duh. And Christopher Plummer plays the cardinal Catholic guy running the show. It's just, yeah. Anyway. All right. So this leads to a earlier question that in the list from Tyler. How can we help you take a vacation? It seems like you guys don't ever get time off. No, we don't, except when I go to the hospital. Yep. And everyone needs time off from work, 2-week schedule. So
yes.
How can you help us get a vacation? Get more patrons in there.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds good. I mean, that's the answer to like literally any question you ask. Hey, have you thought about more patrons?
Yes.
Well, part of the luxury of doing a 2-week schedule is that we don't have the like the hard strict schedule of like every week or multiple episodes a week that a lot of
Right.
podcasters have to adhere to. So that means that our general like production schedule is a little bit more relaxed than most other podcasts.
It might be also why you get such freaking long episodes.
I mean,
from us.
yeah, right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the same amount of content, right? An hour and a half episode every week, or 3-hour episodes every 2 weeks, but or 5-hour episodes every 2 weeks, whatever we choose. So like I started doing this for that very reason, so that it didn't overwork me while I was doing Naked Mormonism under its really strict and intense production schedule. So having our current production schedule is kind of nice, especially for situations where like, you know, I'm possibly going to be moving in a couple of weeks, and that is probably going to conflict with our recording schedule. So then that just means that we front load the work the week before our regular schedule, and we're still good. Shannon has had some medical problems lately, and we've been able to accommodate those and still keep on the same production schedule. And you know, it's not too hard to stick to this 2-week schedule. I don't want to go to every week. I like this.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. I was like, it would be funny to try to divide ours into weekly, but I thought of that while you're saying that, and I was like, can you just imagine that? And then we get to this, and now the cliffhanger. Stay tuned next week for the rest of the story. Oh my.
Oh, I don't think our listeners would be very happy.
They would like me. Nope. Will's over there glaring at the camera going, don't you dare, Shannon.
Don't
All
take
right.
half of my episode.
When you weren't here, it was a TikTok. Yes. That was the other thing. I was like, you seriously only did an hour-and-a-half episode without me. Now you make it look like I'm the reason these are so long ass that I can't shut up, as I'm not shutting up here. Yeah. All right.
That's fair.
Yeah, fine.
I mean, that's what happens when you have co-hosts who can't shut up instead of just one host who can't shut up.
No, Naked Mormonism got to be a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Really long episodes too, so
That's
not
true.
just you, Shannon.
Yes, that's true. That's not my fault. My fault is 5 hours. Okay. Any topics that we wish we could do a full episode on, but that are not related to Mormonism enough to justify?
Ugh. Tyler, it's exponential. A third host would be your key to 24 hours. No, don't give us ideas, Tyler.
We will make you do it, Tyler.
That's right. Now joining us for Mormon Money Part 5 is Tyler. Hope you're strapped in and you brought some food along with you.
Right. That's it. Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, for me, it would just be, well, a Jane Austen episode.
That's actually not a bad idea. Yeah,
I could, well, actually, I could actually make it related to Mormonism. I could easily make it related to Mormonism now that I think about it. But anything to do a full episode on, God, there's a lot of things to think about there. I don't know.
Julie,
Other than
do
Jane
it,
Austen.
Shannon. Do it. I want you to do it.
I know. Everybody's like, I want to see you do a 4-hour episode on Jane Austen. No, you really don't.
I mean,
You'll be just sitting there going, okay, shut up, Shannon. All right. Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting.
I think it'd be fun, but
I mean, we do deep, like my main segments are like long deep dives where I'm telling a story all the time or telling the information all the time. Like I would love to be told all about Jane Austen. That would be great.
I mean, God.
Tyler, do it so more of us get references. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you. I agree. Please, yes, we all deserve this.
I don't very often even say that I'm giving out a reference or say it's I will only call it, Jane Austen reference like 1 out of every 4, just because I'm always curious if there's some random person who's read as much as I have. There never is. I throw out at least one every week on the Aaron Ross show that I'm on. So anyway, but yeah, that's all right. Yeah, good times.
I think if I were to do one, and a lot of this is mostly the reason I haven't done it is because there isn't the Mormon angle, but the other more important reason is that others do it better. I would love to do an overview of like Utah politics and how they compare to other red state politics, just to see how red Utah actually is. But that's still related to Mormonism. So if I were to expand that out and make it not about Mormonism, I would probably want to do something that is like an overview of Supreme Court, maybe like a basic explainer or something like that, because it's something that I spend a lot of time learning about, and it's something that fascinates me, but there's just no reason to do it on Glassbox. And if you want to know about the Supreme Court, or if you want to know about the headlines in it, there are 30 podcasts that talk about it, and that's the entire subject of it, and they know way more about it than I ever could. But it is something that is like interesting enough to me and important with how much power is vested in the Supreme Court right now, that I think something like that would be really interesting. And when I talk to people about how just like some of the basic mechanisms of how the Supreme Court works, it seems to me that there's a lot of basic information that most of us don't know, that is just barely one step above schoolhouse rock, that we're never taught in school. You never learn this information unless you seek this information out actively. And I think that could be kind of fun to do, just like an overall explainer of kind of how these things work and how much power the Supreme Court has right now compared to past times.
That's true. That would be interesting.
So that's my choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Favorite non-dragon animal? One of the reasons why dragons are favorite is I don't have to take care of them, because those things aren't real. But favorite animal that I would have to take care of. Well, there's two, actually. I mean, I love guinea pigs. They stink unless you clean their cage out at least every other day. But I do love guinea pigs, and I think they're just delightful. We had one we were given in Georgia when we lived in Georgia. Some friends of ours, he worked for the FBI, he worked for the international something or other division of it. So they were sent to Hungary, I think it was. Yeah, it was Hungary. I was trying to remember earlier. For a year and a half or a year or something like that. And so they gave us the guinea pig because they don't travel well. And that guinea pig, her name was Miss Piggy. And they'd gotten her from a shelter where she had been taken from a home where she'd been abused. And so she was not very happy around humans. They aren't anyway. You have to pretty much train them from birth to accept humans. And so we got her and worked with her over time, and we had her for about a little over a year, and it was so delightful because I got her to where she would eat off of my hand. And so, I mean, I was giving her fresh vegetables every day, and so I would chop up carrots for her, celery or whatever, and she would hear me chopping. But the best one was bell peppers. I would have the red, yellow, and green ones, and orange, and I would cut them up into pieces, and I would hold it in my hand, and I got her to where she would eat them off my hand, and then after she's done eating each one, she would lick all the juice off my hand. And I melted every day when I did that because it was so delightful. But the other one I love the most is guppies, and I love to have fish, but I love guppies because, I mean, guppies, like a lot of the animal kingdom, the females are boring and the males are very flashy colored and everything. But with guppies, they have live birth, which is the coolest thing to watch, because guppies themselves are only like 2 inches long at most. And so you have this little teeny tiny little ball fall out and then start swimming around, and they give birth to anywhere between 15 and 30 of them. Of course, they will eat them right afterwards. And when I first had them, I would separate them out so that the babies would grow up and everything. And then I realized that was stupid because one, I had this overpopulation, but two, they would also die just randomly. And each generation got successively smaller and weaker. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that fighting to survive thing is important. So I stopped doing that and I just left them all in the same tank together. And however many lived. And it just, to me, it's just delightful to watch that. So guppies and guinea pigs, other than dragons, yeah. So,
And Tyler commented, dragons are real. I have one named Smaug. I was about to say Pixar, it didn't happen, but have it.
there it is. Yep.
He's got to say something or else it won't show on the live stream.
Yeah, we gotta. I want the viewers to also see this, Tyler.
Speak,
All right.
Tyler.
This is Smaug. He's our oldest. We have three other pets, but he's the oldest. I don't know how well you can see him. He's gonna get stressed out if I take him off, but he's pretty long. He's like the length of my arm. See, he's got how big his tail is. He's so big.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a bearded dragon. So
Nice. They are, I mean, there is the Komodo dragon, which I think is pretty dangerous, isn't it?
I mean, it like has like rotting flesh in its jowls that'll like give you necritis and stuff. So they're intense.
yeah.
Yes.
My go-to are I love reptiles. Snake. I have owned a ton of snakes at various times in my life, both wild caught and domestic bred, and I go through phases where I just crave owning a snake and holding one and playing with one again, and then I'll get it and I'll love it for years and then I'll get rid of it. But I've been like going on that phase of like wanting a snake again for a while. So I would love to get a hognose because they're delightful and they play dead and it's so adorable. And then another one, a breed that I only learned about through Aaron's show is a Dumeral boa. They have little Joker faces on the side of them. If you pay for one that's like really well bred or whatever, I would love to get that, and I would name it Comedian because The Watchmen is just such a wonderful show.
There you go. Now there are also, by the way, there's a snail that I think is just real dragons. I don't know if you've all heard of this. It's a volcanic snail, and they live in 750 degrees Fahrenheit temperature because they live in volcanoes. You know, their shells are made of iron. They live around the hydrothermal vents that
Their
reach that
shells
high.
are made of iron. That's metal as fuck.
They are so weird. They are
The
weird as
only
fuck,
time
but
where you
they
can
are
say
cool.
nature is metal and it's a literal phrase.
Yep.
Amazing.
It's a
Wow.
volcano snail, and I'm like, those are dragons.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
They're dragons. Yep. I know. So yeah, those are cool. They are really cool, but it's not something I'm ever going to actually own because I don't like things that hot. Yeah.
So I'm looking at our time. I mean, we normally go 2 hours on
We
these. So
do.
do we maybe want to take like one or two more questions and then save, because we still have quite a few thanks to our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/glassboxpod. So I'm
Yes.
thinking maybe we might want to save some of these questions for the next Q&A when we do that. Hopefully
Yeah.
back on regular schedule coming up pretty soon. And maybe we just take one or two more questions, just kind of play us out for the night. Does that sound good?
That works.
Awesome.
Since we only have like 12 more questions from Tyler on here. Okay, actually, there's a couple from Will I didn't bring up. He brought up two books, Dan Vogel's new book, Charisma Under Pressure, and Libby Grant's book, The Prophet's Wife, asking if we'd read either or both of them. I have not read either of them, but actually that was a first time I've heard about him, which is, I was like, why is this the first time I've heard about him? And that's
Will, what is The Prophet's Wife? What is that? I've never heard of that.
It's
book before.
about Emma.
Oh,
Yeah, I looked it up because I'm like, oh, interesting.
is it a pretty
It's
recent
fiction. It's historical fiction. I don't know. I just engaged with her on Twitter, the author, and and I listened to her book. It's because it's fiction. I don't know, Bryce. I don't know how much you'd like it, but you'd probably be interested in like comparing how accurate it is, but it's just like a rewriting of the history from Emma's point of view.
Is
But
it
it's
a faithful
she's an
fiction?
ex-Mormon.
Ex-Mormon.
No.
Oh,
She's into magic, like not magic, but like she's into that I don't know the right word. But yeah, she's not faithful at all.
that
Yeah.
actually sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like
yeah,
she
I
goes.
was-
It's almost like the Mark Elwood type stuff, but like a different version of that.
right. A novel instead of the graphic novel. Yeah, I was looking at some of the reviews for it, and it does look interesting. They'd say there were moments of this book of Emma's story, which is what this book truly zeroes in on within the context of the church her husband found, that were just absolutely heartbreaking. Libby Grant has a fascinating insight into not just Emma's character or the history she's relating through this work of fiction, but of also what American faith means, how it has been used not just to shape our views of the world and ourselves, even for good and ill, for good and ill, but to warp society around us to better fit Revelation. Which I'm like, okay, now I'm actually really interested in reading it.
that
So,
sounds fascinating.
Yeah. There's a few people I know who've also written reviews on it on Amazon. So that's kind of interesting too. But yeah, I'm curious about it now, seeing this. And so I will take a look at that. The Dan Vogel book, didn't you just hear about that?
Yeah,
Bryce?
so that's a really new book. I mean, that was only released like 2 or 3 months ago or something like that, and I can't even believe that somebody has even had the time to read through it yet, because it's like 900 pages or something.
It's 1290 pages on Kindle.
Oh
I
my
need you to read it,
God.
Bryce, and then explain it to me, because I've never read it.
There we go.
So I have not read it yet. Honestly, I hope this comes off in the best way. I find Dan Vogel to be a tedious author. He is similar to D. Michael Quinn, where he is so unbelievably thorough that you almost lose the point in just trying to get all of the details and all of the facts correct. So for that reason, I have to admit it, I've never even been able to get all the way through Making a Prophet. Because I find it just, I just find his writing is a bit tedious to read. So with that said, my understanding is that Charisma Under Pressure is very much this same kind of like meticulous and tedious style. The only person who I talked to who has read it so far is Cheryl Bruno. I just spoke with her at MHA last weekend. I mean, I got home yesterday, and she said that the problem with the book is that it's titled Charisma Under Pressure, but at every moment Dan fails to articulate why Joseph Smith was charismatic. And I don't know, like that's her review of it, and that's just off the cuff comment. That's not an official review. That's just what she said in passing to me and to some other people who brought it up in conversation at various times. If I were to read it, I'd probably have a similar takeaway from it, but like writing about charisma is such a very hard thing to talk about, especially if you're writing a 1,200 page tome about just a 6-year period, right? That's right. Is it 1831 to 1836, or maybe it's 9-year period? I can't remember the subtitle of it. But he's writing about the charisma of Joseph Smith under an incredibly complex time frame, but it's a very short time frame. But because these books, we know how tedious Dan Vogel is in his research, so he backs everything up in triplicate. So that just, I don't know how good it is to actually read through. I don't know when I'll be able to get through it. Maybe after I get through Making of a Prophet, then I'll pick it up. I haven't read it yet. I don't know. But the thing with it is, though, Dan Vogel does groundbreaking research, and that's why I have so many of his damn books on my bookshelf, because he breaks new ground. He does things, he examines subjects in total that sets the new benchmark by which other books are measured from that time forward. And in order to do a proper treatment of the Kirtland era, he had to make it that long, that massive, and that fact dense. So yeah, if that's what you're looking for, then okay. But look, he wrote a book that 150 people are going to buy and read. That's fine.
Yeah. I just bought the Prophet's Wife one because it looks interesting, and I'll let you know what I think of it.
Yeah, I want to hear about that for sure.
Yeah, so that would probably be an episode. Yeah, there we go. Let's finish this up with one last question that Roy put in. And he says, many people who leave Mormonism at a young age don't seem to be at all interested in the subject anymore. Bryce walked away from the cult in his youth, but is obviously still very much interested in Mormonism. So why do you think that is? And he's very glad you are, by the way, just so you know, this is not
Yeah. Which, by the way,
attack.
Hi, Roy. It's awesome to see you again.
Yes.
It's been many, many years since I've seen you. I don't have an explanation for it. All I have is my own personality that I seek to understand things as total as I possibly can. And after I left the church, I wanted to process what the fuck I had just gone through, and that continues to drive me. And just processing and learning, like when I am learning new information and that light bulb moment where my mind totally grasps a new concept, that is like that's what I've trained my serotonin receptors to dump and get excited and make me feel really good for, is when I grasp a new concept. So the more that I dive into this subject, the more that I have those eureka moments that it's like, oh my God, this is a revelation. This is so interesting. I learned something new. But I get the sense that my personality type would be that way with any subject matter that I chose to study. So for me, it just happened to be the cult that I was raised in. And for a lot of people, it is. For a lot of people, it happens to be the cult that they're still in. But I don't know. I think it's probably a lot healthier to not obsess over a cult after you leave it. I think that a lot of people who just walk away from the religion are probably doing really great and having wonderful, happy lives right now. So
hard to say.
Yeah,
I did not walk away as a teenager, so I don't have to answer the question. No. Yeah. I mean, for me, this is just healing. And especially things like with the Orange Show on Sundays with reading Joseph's myth, that I don't prepare for it ahead of time during the week, because it's bad enough having to just go in and read it. I don't know if I can even explain to people what it feels like, because it's like it's tearing away at the inside of me each time I'm on there and we're reading. But it's also like, okay, all right, okay, all of those things you had problems with in the past, there's a reason why, and you were right. There wasn't something wrong with you because you had a problem with it, and so that's just such a weird feeling. It's which is why I like doing the show. Really happy to be one of the panelists on there, because it is healing, but it's also like shredding something off to heal. And so which is why there's a Shannon tirade almost every time. Oh God. Just wait till we get to Alma. This is gonna be fucked. Oh my God.
I mean, we're just starting to crack into the war chapters right now. So yay, so much fun.
And I'm like, Captain America. Whew. Captain Moroni was like my hero. And I'm like, fuck. All right. Yeah.
Perfect Freudian slip, though.
Yes, it was. Captain America's cuter than that, though. Anyway, all right. I think we're done.
Right. I think so. Yeah. Well, we had a bunch of panelists join us. We had a bunch of questions. We had a bunch of likes on YouTube as well. Like, it seems like everybody who was viewing liked it, which is super awesome. So to all of our panelists, to all of our questioners, to the viewers, and of course to our patrons at patreon.com/glassboxpod, who make not only live streams possible, but, well, I mean, you don't make the show possible, you just pay us for doing what we like to do already, and we really appreciate that. So yeah, we really do want to extend our gratitude out to everybody who contributed to this live stream tonight, and who listens into the show and watches and enjoys our 5-hour episodes for whatever reasons those are. But yeah, with that, we will resume our hopefully quarterly Q's and A's, barring acts of God or medical circumstances, which who knows what's going to happen. So we will see how that goes. Yeah, and thank you all so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of your night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Okay, I think we